What's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and we are taking a look at the Chicago Blackhawks. So the Blackhawks are in an interesting situation. They've got a new general manager, completely new staff, probably a new head coach as well. So what's going to happen this summer? We've heard some interesting rumors. Dylan Strome maybe in a swap for Jesse Puljujarvi. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but it has been mentioned. The Oilers don't do well in these swap trades. Taylor Hall, Ryan Strome, these things don't go well for them. Jordan Eberle, maybe they should stay away from that for a little bit. But for the Blackhawks' perspective, there's a couple names. Kirby Dach's been mentioned. Alex Debrincat. There's a lot of big names being talked about right now in the trade rumor mill in Chicago. So we're going to look at that today. So this is from Elliotte Friedman to start things off. A team to watch in the next few weeks, Chicago. Other than Kane, Taze, obviously Seth Jones, who has a no-move clause, they're testing value at anyone that teams want to ask about. Can teams make an offer that makes Chicago want to seriously think about it? Kind of thinking back to the Brandon Hagel trade, right? I mean, Tampa gave up an exorbitant amount. 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick. They gave up the barn, really, for Brandon Hagel. And listen, Brandon Hagel is a good hockey player, but, I mean, worth 2 first-round picks and a second, and it totally threw off the trade market. And, you know, Kyle Davidson's not going to say no to that. But that's something that you can only do when you're dealing with a team like Tampa, right? That doesn't need the draft picks. They want to win Stanley Cups, right? So when I look at that kind of situation, they're going to look for teams looking to do that. And Colorado could be that next team, right? Montreal did the same thing with Colorado, right? For Artturi Lehkonen. They got some pretty good value for Lehkonen. So I think Chicago is going to kind of continue to try and do that. Now, let's talk about Dylan Strome, because that's the first thing we have to cover. From Oilers Now, Elliotte Friedman on if the Blackhawks will qualify Dylan Strome. Not convinced they are. Teams are definitely watching him, but Chicago definitely tried to move him this season. And I think that's what's going to end up happening. I think the whole swap thing just doesn't really work right now. I think they're going to let him go. They weren't really getting the offers they wanted for him. Let him go where he wants to go. And you're going to have to deal with the consequences. If he becomes potentially an MVP next season or whatever, they have to live with that. But at the end of the day, they weren't getting the offers the last 2 years now. I mean, I made videos during training camp in 2021 about Dylan Strome getting traded, and nothing happened all season. Might be best for both sides to just mutually kind of divorce this situation and let it move forward, and I think that's what they will end up doing. But I'll definitely keep you guys up to date on that. We talked about Kirby Dach a couple of days ago in a blockbuster trade to Boston. Bruins fans, I think it's so interesting because I've talked about this. Bruins fans aren't even that thrilled about Kirby Dach in terms of what he provides. They just want to get rid of Jake DeBrusk, which I think is so weird. But that's their stance on things. Now, I think the mindset's changing very quickly there with Don Sweeney and everything now that David Pastrnak could get traded. Do they really want to trade draft picks and prospects for Kirby Dach when they're losing Bergeron? They're going to start the season without Marchand and McAvoy and potentially without Pasta. I don't think that's going to necessarily happen. So I think the Blackhawks are going to recalibrate what they're looking at for Kirby Dach. The Blackhawks are taking trade calls on Kirby Dach this offseason. That's from Elliotte Friedman. So this is not BS. This is legit. We're hearing this recently. We've heard this since the trade deadline, and a lot of it is because they don't think Kirby Dach fits the style of play that the Blackhawks want. I keep trying to harp on that. You guys aren't really understanding that part. It's that he's not the type of player they want. They want more of the Patrick Kane player than the Jonathan Toews player. And you guys know what I'm talking about. It's a clearly different player. They want the speed, the skill, and just the really good skaters. And Kirby Dach isn't necessarily that. He's more of the John Tavares, Jonathan Toews-esque player. And they're very good hockey players. definitely. And maybe Kirby Doc doesn't become Tavares or Taves, but that type of center where he has taken knocks for his mobility as a skater, but he is still very talented. And I think the Blackhawks, they want a guy that's more of a talented center. And with the amount of talented centers in this year's draft, from obviously Brad Lambert to the Shane Wrights to all those guys, I do think Chicago, if they can move back in the top 20 of this year's draft class, they might take a Frank Nazar or a Brad Lambert or one of those guys as a top 6 center. They're drafting them as a top 6 center. Maybe not a first-line center. Maybe they'll look at that more in Connor Bedard next year. But I think that's something that they will be looking at. So Kirby Doc, for the right trade, I do think it makes sense for them to trade him. Now, things get crazier than that. The next guy is Alex Debrincat. Now, I think this is more on the assumption on what's happening with Kane and Taves. I think this is more of a domino effect because they aren't going to re-sign Kane and Taves. Debrincat wants out because those two won't be there. It makes sense. And the latest report, which really was buzzing around earlier this week, was it's not a matter if Alex Debrincat gets traded, it's a matter of when, which is it's guaranteed Debrincat's getting traded. It's just a matter of, is it the draft? Is it during free agency? Is it in the dog days of July or August? We don't know. But it is going to happen. It might even happen at the trade deadline. I know. Here's the thing. I think the Blackhawks will be proactive in trading Alex Debrincat this summer because his contract ends in 2023. He'll be an RFA next summer. So whatever team acquires him at the deadline next year would be getting him as a rental, which means the Blackhawks are not getting maximum value for him. So that's why we've seen recently a lot of teams trading, and we saw that with Arturi Lekin and Hagel this year, right? The Canadians and Blackhawks were able to get more value for these players because of really good contracts that were not one-year deals. They were longer-term contracts, and that's what happens when you trade a guy a year from free agency. You're going to get more value the sooner you trade him, and the longer a team has him, that does account for a lot of value. So that's what you're looking at with Debrincat. Now, the teams that are interested, a complete laundry list. A ton of teams have been connected to Alex Debrincat. And obviously one of those perked my interest, of course. So the first one is from David Pagnotta. The Devils, Kings, Islanders, and Flyers are among the teams with interest in Alex Debrincat. Now, obviously, I'm not surprised. We've heard a lot about the Kings and the Devils. The Flyers kind of interest me because they're going in the rebuild direction. So to see them going after Debrincat, is this more of them looking for a retool? You're finding a guy to replace Claude Giroux, and you get Debrincat in return? That does make sense, but if I'm the Blackhawks, honestly, I'm asking for a guy like Cam York. I'm asking for a guy like Owen Tippett. I'm asking for those guys. The question is, will the Flyers will the Flyers be willing to trade those guys? I don't think they will. So I don't think that's a fit. We know that Lou Lamoriello, I have to do a video on this, but the Islanders are going big this year. They got rid of Barry Trotz. They got rid of both assistant coaches. Jim Heller, who's already being interviewed for head coaching jobs in Dallas and Philly. The Islanders are torching everything. Lou Lamoriello's doing something, and I have to make a video about that because I think Lou is looking to make a big move this summer. Whether that's a guy like Philip Forsberg in free agency or Alex Debrincat in a trade, I don't know what Lou is going to do, but the fact he's making all these moves in the front office, behind the bench, the Islanders are doing something big, and I don't know what. I'm just kind of waiting for it. So if it's Debrincat, it's going to be a big one for the Islanders. And the Islanders do have the prospects and draft picks to give the Blackhawks. I mean, the Islanders would be one of the few teams, I think, that would trade some of their young talent at the cost of getting Debrincat. It might take a Kiefer Bellows, Oliver Wahlstrom, maybe a Robin Salo, and a first and second round pick. It might be that expensive, but you get Alex Debrincat in return. So that's definitely something to look at. Again, the Islanders, Flyers, Devils, and Kings all connected to Debrincat. The Kings could be among the teams with interest in Debrincat and Kevin Fiala, and that's from the fourth period. So the Kings looking at Kevin Fiala as well from the fourth period. The Kings want to make a big trade. According to Pajnota, the Kings are one of the teams in on Debrincat. Again, all kind of similar reports there. I think it's kind of crazy that they're trading Debrincat. I mean, the Cat not playing in Chicago is going to be weird, but the Blackhawks are going in a new direction here, and I think that they're looking at really seismic moves this year because they know what guys are available next year. Like I said, Taves, Kane, Debrincat, all those guys are going to be either RFAs or UFAs next year. And Kirby Dach is an RFA this year. So if they're not 100% sold in investing in him in a 6, 7, 8-year deal this year, maybe they decide to trade him. And I know there's Blackhawks fans that say they want to keep him, right? Because his brother Colton Dach got drafted, right? For that sole purpose. But this is not the same leadership anymore. They might trade both Dachs to Buffalo, to Boston, to pick your poison of whatever team it is. Dachs might not be for the long-term future in Chicago anymore. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. What do you guys want to see in return for Alex Debrincat? Give me some, maybe not specific teams and players, but like, is it 2 first-round picks, 2 prospects, and a second? Like, what ballpark would you be okay with seeing Debrincat get traded? Again, realistic. We're not talking about Matt Barzal, Oliver Wahlstrom. Give me a legitimate offer for a team around the league that you could see a deal for Debrincat. Let me know down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.